Like we were right, it's hit the fan. So let's dive in and talk about it. Well, that old man is pulling more of his antics. I think today he had his daughter holding his hand and helping him so he doesn't trip, stumble, fall, or otherwise further disgrace himself, the office, and the country. Folks, welcome back. It is a marvelous Monday. Marvelous. It also has its mayhem. Welcome to the Prepared Mind channel. Woo! You got Man in the wings, keeping an eye on stuff. You got me right here in Bunker Central, and you guys are out there scouring the headlines, watching the world, reporting to one another, helping out on the show. I could not do it without you guys. Thank you much. And I need you here right now live. If you're on the preparedmind.club or Subscribe Star, you're here Monday afternoon. If you're watching this Tuesday on YouTube, all you have to do is do a $2 membership a month fee. And it's a premium, folks, and it helps keep us here, keep things going, keep the lights on, and yes, the spam and the tuna fish going. Yeah, they're trying to scare people away from spam. Can you believe that? Well, I can. They're trying to scare us a lot with this mayhem out here. Let's do this. I told Man it'd be cool to start off with a comment, question, suggestion, thought coming from you guys. And then we'll get into my monologue on a Monday, and it is H12. Heidi. She says, I have a question for John. How the heck do you lose an F-35? On autopilot, how far could that fly? Well, that's a good question. So what she's referring to is an F-35. You know, it's a fighter jet. Apparently there was a problem, and the pilot punched out, AKA ejected. And now the government is asking us, the civilian population, for help in finding it. Isn't this incredible? The government doesn't think that UFO/weather balloons are a problem hovering over our nuclear air bases for days. And they can't seem to find it. They can't seem to shoot down more weather balloons over the Great Lakes. They seem to miss those. And then we lose an F-35, unpiloted, unmanned, just flying around. My response to your question, Heidi, is what the fuck, right? Hello, it is not 1910 or 1920 or even 1930. Don't we have this thing called radar? Don't we have planes and helicopters that can look for smoldering, crashed airplanes? Isn't the country covered in so many people that we're a carbon-based, carbon-producing, carbon life form, right? And aren't we everywhere able to find everything? This story stinks, actually. I was just kind of throwing some ideas back at Mr. Man earlier. Shouldn't they ask the pilot, okay, dude, you punched out. Where do you think it was going? What was your heading, since we, the government, don't know shit? Now, here's the deal. I mean, they could track, the 9/11 planes. That was over 20 years ago. 22 years ago, in fact. They could track them left and track them right. They could follow them in little circles. They could follow all their patterns, but they can't find this plane. Was the F-35 in stealth mode? Was that it? And we don't have our own way to track them. There's no transponder coming out of it. I do know that if an officer has to punch out, they better have a damn good reason, or, right, their commission is over. You don't lose a extremely, extremely expensive fighter jet. This story just stinks. How far could it fly? I don't know. 500, 1,000 miles if it was on autopilot. You would think with all the smart technology, they could remote pilot those things, don't you? They practically land themselves, I thought. Modern airplanes with all their avionics and programs. And, yeah, we have radar, we have LiDAR, we have naval ships, we have ground-based radar. Don't we even have satellites? What about Starlink? Maybe they ought to ask Elon Musk, hey, Elon, why don't you do us a favor and do our jobs for us? Because apparently the military is so incompetent that they are now losing jets. Not to besmirch our brave fighter pilots out there. I don't know. I mean, was this? I've seen two stories. One is the Air Force needs help, and the other is Marine Corps pilot. So which was it, Air Force or Marine Corps pilot? Typical, they don't know what the hell they're talking about in the media, so they just confuse us all. I'm confused. How do you lose one of these jets? And what you're saying is on autopilot. If it was on autopilot and it can fly around for hours, why would the pilot need to punch out? Why would he need to eject? Abandon ship. Why? What was going on? That's really the last course of events any pilot is supposed to take, is abandoning your jet, vessel, plane, whatever. You do all you can to salvage it because of the expense of it and also for training experience. I mean, what did this guy do? Set down his Starbucks accidentally on the eject button? Or was it hacked? Think about it. You know, these Russian hackers, they're pretty smart, all right? Think about it. Maybe they got hacked with a satellite signal, forced the eject. The dude's like, hey, poof, shot right out of there. Or maybe an alien did it, because we have mummified aliens in Mexico now. It's hard to say what it is. All I know is I don't think that their stories they have make a lot of sense. Ooman says, I wonder what the finder's fee would be on a $100 million F-35. Tell you what, they'll probably put a bullet in the back of your cranium. There's your answer. You bet. So I'm going to move along because the story still makes no sense. It makes no sense. Just like so much of the world we live in today. For example, in Texas, at a church, they're going to have a drag Sunday service. They're going to bless the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. Well, folks, the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, they're not nuns. They're drag queens. They're satanic drag queens. And a church is going to bless them. So I want to say this to all the religious types. You need to take your message back into the churches and straighten the churches. Clean them up. Stop lecturing and evangelizing on the internet. You better get to your brick and mortar churches. Stat. Right? This is the state of the church in our nation, in our world now, where they don't know right from wrong, left from right, up from down, good from bad, or good from evil, if you will. I just can't imagine being in this church and whoever the leader of the church is saying, yeah, we're going to have a bunch of satanic, perverted, sick fruitcakes come here and we're going to bless them. It's shit at the fan, folks. If this isn't evidence, I don't know what is. Now, let's just move on. Let's skip from, let's see, satanic emissaries being blessed in a Christian church in Texas, all the way over to Africa, in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Those three nations have signed a security pact. For what? Well, it's to stop an Islamic insurgence and foreign invasion. How fascinating is that? How is it that in Black Africa, not above the Sahara, which is Mediterranean and Arab, but sub-Sahara, Isn't Niger sub-Sahara? Anyways, they're black, right? They are worried about an Islamic insurgence. Funny, there was no Islamic insurgence until France was told to get the hell out of there. Oh, by the way, the French officials are now freed from prison in Niger. They're no longer being held hostage. Yep, here it comes, folks. Oh, by the way, the United States government in Washington, D.C., they have resumed their drone operations from its airbase in Niger. Folks, they're pushing conflict in Africa. Now, because this is a nation populated by blacks, Africans, real blacks, is this racist of France and racist of Washington, D.C.? Isn't that racist? Seriously, these are black African nations. They don't need white nations like the United States and France telling them what to do. And then bringing their Islamic insurgents forces to bear to create more conflict. How is that going to help the Islamic or Christian or non-denominational black African populations? How is this going to help? Seriously, these are real African nations in our country, or at least our United States, Washington, D.C. federal sovereign government that doesn't listen to its own people. They're pushing for war there. It is a powder keg waiting for someone to put their cigar out in a big pile of gunpowder. Now, Washington, D.C., is it or is it not a hotbed of justice? Well, Kamala Harris, that's right, the first black vice president, or is she not? She wants to go, you really can't make this shit up. She is lecturing about the racist criminal justice system of the United States of America. This is after she kept black men in prison past the release dates so that the state of California had cheap labor. And by the way, these men that were being held, they were being sentenced far longer than they should. It was for non-violent crimes. Who is the racist? Well, the hypocrisy, folks, smells worse than I think anyone can imagine. It stinks. It just absolutely stinks. For anyone to lecture me on my language or me on my spirituality or me on anything, and then to have the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence enter churches and be blessed, or for me to be told that my white European ancestry makes me a racist and there's no way I can get out of it. There's nothing I can do. Yet the government does this. They want to keep their assets in Africa, so they're willing to stomp all over black autonomy, that is, black run, black owned, black countries in Africa. No, it just gets better, folks. It just gets better. Are you ready for this? Did you know that the Clinton Global Initiative, yeah, their charity, right? They are now going to provide humanitarian aid to Ukraine because it's a war-torn country, right? So they're launching a network. They're bringing together all their people. That's right. Hillary Clinton really cares. Or is this indicating that Hillary is raking in cash for herself and not charity? But they're going to call it a charity thing. They're going to call it humanitarian aid. Didn't the Clintons give out humanitarian aid in Haiti after a massive earthquake? And didn't they try shuttling children into the country? Didn't they start to get in trouble for that? Didn't someone expose it? Didn't that same person get assassinated? I mean, didn't they commit arkancide? Folks, anytime Hillary's involved in anything, it's for raking in cash for herself, not charity. And if it's time to start getting humanitarian aid, that lets you know that Ukraine is losing and losing big. Now, On that note, I have some very fascinating SHTF information for you to munch on. Oh, yeah. There are gangs helping Ukrainian men escape the military draft. That's right. Kind of reminds me of the Underground Railroad, right? Where people are trying to get away from, well, forced servitude, conscription, a draft into the military. That's right, folks. Volodymyr Zelensky, the beloved midget leader of Ukraine. They've gone into overdrive. They've got it in tall gear, folks. They're mobilizing. They're getting the troops out. They're getting the old. They're getting the crippled. And they're getting women for the front line. And there's men there, folks. It's crazy. So Kiev is going after gangs. Kiev is now fighting itself. Zelensky is fighting his own country because his own country are saying, we ain't going to fight in this. It is a meat grinder over there. Zelensky, folks, is he good or is he evil? Is he the lesser of two evils or is it just evil and evil? Anyways, I think he's gone mad. Absolutely stark, raving mad. Now, here's an indicator whether or not shit has hit the fan and I'm wrong or right about Zelensky. If you lived in Kiev, if you lived anywhere in Ukraine, how would you feel about Zelensky as your leader? Having a military that is allied closely and even led by neo-Nazis. How would you like that if that was your military? Would you be happy? Would you be satisfied? Would you say, hey, yeah, hell yeah, I'm going to have my kids. I'm going to suggest to my grandkids go serve in the military under these people. Crazy, folks. I call it genocide. I call it genocide. When they're telling women, old men, cripples that they need to be in the military because they're killing so many Ukrainian men. It sounds to me just like genocide. What do you think? What's your opinion? What is your opinion, folks? There's just unbelievable stupidity going on right now. Unbelievable stupidity. Oh, yes. By the way, the Ukraine military, they're switching gears. Switching gears. Have you heard the word? Well, everybody's heard about the bird. No, not that bird, folks. The bird of freedom and liberty was shot down over Ukraine. These people, in the government, folks, what have they done? What has Zelensky's government done? Well, they started by controlling the press and saying no objecting to what we're doing by fighting Russia. And then they told other political elected officials, the people's representatives, you will not criticize what Zelensky and the military are doing. If you do, you're going to be arrested, have your assets frozen. Then they said, not good enough. We can do far more here in Ukraine. Let's go after priests and churches. And these aren't like churches in America that have drag queens in them. Right? These are churches that actually have Eastern Orthodox Catholics. And they're being arrested. They're having their churches closed for daring, I guess, to say anything against His Highness Zelensky. And then they want to arrest, imprison, and even execute Russian propagandists. That is, anyone in the media who would dare put out a story that criticizes these morons. So it took over 10 years for the United States of America to lose, 68,000 of our troops? Well, in just under 2 years, Ukraine has managed to kill 500,000 of their own people. It's a small country, folks. The Ukraine is not as big as the United States of America. It's a small little country. And they've killed 500,000 of their men. Sounds like genocide to me. So, what do? Well, they accuse their own military leaders of, well, being corrupt. This coming from Zelensky, who takes vacations in the Mediterranean because, he's very tired from his hard work. Well, now they've fired all their deputy defense ministers, and they're looking at changing their entire strategy to fight Russia, folks. I thought this was supposed to be about land, the breakaway territories of eastern Ukraine that are now independent Russian federal states. So the the Ukraine Pentagon, what do they call that? The Ukraine Triangle? The Ukraine military leadership is considering now switching from fighting the Russians on land to attacking the Black Sea Fleet. Well, I think they're thinking this is because they'll lose fewer men. The meat grinder is just an incredible killing machine, waiting for Ukrainians to attack and then just slaughtering them. So I guess let's try some naval attacks. That's right. They're going to go after the Russian Black Sea Fleet, which is in Sevastopol or in Crimea, out in the Black Sea. Hey, why fail on the land, on just the land, when you can get your asses kicked in the sea? Does Ukraine really believe? Do they really believe that they can beat the Russians in the sea? Folks, for decades, the United States of America, with its submarine fleet, played their games, right, against the Russians. Russian subs will light up Ukraine if they try this. It's incredible. There's a huge amount of food and natural resources that leaves this region and uses the Black Sea. And they want to turn it into a war zone. Who is this going to hurt, folks? It's going to hurt the rest of the world. It will not hurt the Russians. I'm sure they may get a few ships sunk. And of course, the mainstream media will jump up and down and applaud. Oh, they'll give the Gulf clap. Oh, you bet, the gold clap. They're going to clap and cheer and yay. But they will underreport or fail to report altogether all the casualties and losses. The seaport of Odessa, what do you think the Russians will do to that? And I think the Russians have been very restrained in their response to Zelensky. They could end up having all of their ships sunk. They could have all of their ports, their portage, their port of entry, their ports in Odessa, Ukraine, which is still under Odessa control. They can just destroy that. But I think Russia is trying not to do that so they can continue to export grain and other natural resources. They're trying not to attack and punish the civilians and hurt other people in the world, but Russia can do this. You see, in Ukraine, they want to turn this into more than a special military operation. They want to turn it into World War III. That is exactly what they want. Are you prepared? Do you see what's coming in all of this? Do you see what's coming? Now, I want to ask you about our history in America real quick before I get back to your questions. After the Constitution of 1789, the thing we call the United States Constitution, after that was drafted and signed in 1789, ratified, approved by the states, there was some questions by those in authority. They were already suspicious of government and how they run to evil ways. And so they created the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. It was a warning shot fired at the government to let them know, no. We're not just going to pretend like we understand what rights are. We're going to describe them in detail. And if those rights are being, shall we say, violated, infringed, then that alone, folks, should be a warning of impending doom in SHTF. That's why we have the amendments. Not only are they there to teach us, me and you, to teach us about our rights and remind us of them, but they're there to remind us that governments will violate them. So we have these amendments in place. But guess what? They don't really matter because we are now being attacked by a very evil federal government. You want to hear something absolutely unbelievable, outrageous, crazy? Not one, but two old ladies who are older than 70 years. These are aged. These are grandma. These are great-grandma aged women who are pro-life. They love babies. They're pro-life activists. Two old women, elderly women, not quite as old as Joe Biden, not quite as old as Nancy Pants Pelosi, but they have been convicted. That's right. They were charged with crimes, and they were tried in court and found guilty and convicted for doing what? For blocking an entrance to an abortion clinic. How dare they? Those nasty old women. So what are they facing? They're facing 11 years in prison, folks. 11 years in prison for trying to stop babies from being killed. So there's this amendment. I was just talking about our Bill of Rights. There's this amendment called the Eighth Amendment, and it has to do with prohibiting the government from using cruel and unusual punishment against its own people. Yeah, folks, what we think is normal thinking. Hey, you shouldn't do things that are outrageous. You shouldn't give someone 100 years for a speeding ticket. That's cruel and unusual punishment. Locking people in the January 6th Washington, D.C. gulag, denying them food, medication, legal counsel, due process, quick and speedy trial, denying them that is, folks, unusual punishment. And feeding them the garbage they did and subjecting them to the unsanitary conditions with sewer water all over, that is cruel. Locking them in solitary confinement, that is cruel. What we think is normal, folks, the government, the federal government, and even some state governments, they think it's just fine. Our rights were enshrined in the Bill of Rights for protection against evil government. So anytime we have to invoke our rights, understand this, for any amendment, it should be a loud and clear warning to all of us of what is coming, impending SHTF. Whether you're saying, man, that's my free rights, that's freedom of speech. If the government or a corporation is violating that, hey, there's a sign that evil is afoot. If they're trying to take your Second Amendment right to self-defense, a God-given right, not a government-granted permission, but a God-given right. Or if they want to try and suspend it because, we need to protect the children. Here we go with the children again, right? That lets you know that government is pushing for your rights. And when they take two 70-year-old women who are trying to do good things, they're not lighting buildings on fire, folks. No, they're not assaulting police night after night after night with explosives, Molotov cocktails, frozen water bottles, rocks, bricks, etc. No, they're just blocking an entrance. 11 years. The Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Seventh Amendment, all of these amendments are in place to warn us that when they're being violated, that means the government has become tyrannical and doom is at our doorstep. When we have to invoke our rights and talk about the amendments, any amendment, you know that government is acting in a very, very evil fashion. Are you prepared for what they're willing to do next? You should be. You absolutely should be. Now, tell you what, Let's do this. Let's go have some fun. Let us do the inner circle with you guys. Little quick PSA there for you guys. If you're on YouTube watching this, you're a day late, but you're not really late. But we would like to have you over at the preparedmind.club or subscribestar.com. Let's do this, though. Mr. Uman, I'm sure we've got some questions, comments, and thoughts out there. Do we not? Let's do it. We've got Uman. He says, hey, the Ukraine population was 44 million in 2020. In 2023, it is estimated to be 36 million. So they've had, well, let's see, about 7 million people just disappear. I'm sure most of those that disappeared are the rich, the wealthy, those who had the ability and capacity to leave the country and take their wealth with them. I'm sure of that. But to know that 500,000 men have been slaughtered. Now, 500,000 compared to, well, 40 million, that's not very much at all, right? That's not much. Why would you even call that genocide, John? Why would you call that genocide? Well, Slobodan Milosevic, he killed a couple thousand people. He was killing people, you know. That was genocide. Yeah, Saddam Hussein, he was killing the Kurds. That's genocide. Everything is genocide when you think that you have to protect those people. It's genocide because fruitcake LGB types are killing themselves and killing one another in their little love trysts. In fact, I explained this to a friend today. I'm like, you understand, this is the question I asked, you understand why there's more violence in homosexual relationships? Well, because in a relationship between a man and a woman, men typically, in most cases, and I know there's exceptions, but in most cases, men will not hit women as a matter of problem solving. But when it comes to men tend to be a little more aggressive, a little more violent. And so now you have two people who are a little more aggressive, a little more violent, and they will get more violent with one another. So yeah, there's a lot more, how do we put this? Inter-LGB aggression and violence. And the lesbians, they don't get any help on this, especially when they're taking male hormones because they want to look butch. You know who I'm talking about. You know exactly who I'm talking about. They commit more crimes against themselves than anyone else. It's self-genocide. Yet, yeah, we gotta do something about this. It just can't be allowed, right? We have to protect them and coddle them and love them and accept them. You know, I can't remember. I think it was Mr. Skylight who sent me a lot of great news stories today, but he also sent me a meme. How about this? I'll accept your pronouns, which I think is an indication of your mental illness, when you accept that all of the people I talk to as a schizophrenic are real and they have a right to vote. And like me, they should each get all of their own welfare, right? I should get like $50,000 a month for all of the split personalities I have, right? Would they accept that? I don't have split personality, folks. Not even one extra. Sorry. All the personality I have is funneled through this being known as John. Anyways, I'm glad to have you here. Great topic, discussion point. Thank you, Mr. Uman. We're going to slide on over to Village Idiot. that picture. He says, should we stop sending missiles and start sending shovels to Ukraine? Hey, I bet the military-industrial shovel complex would really like that. Yeah, they need a lot of shovels, folks. You know what we should be doing? We should be selling them shovels because they've got a lot of digging. They've got a lot of digging to get out of the mess they've gotten in. I cannot understand with my thinking why we need to be in Ukraine spending all the money we're spending, when our own country is in dire straits at this point. It's coming, folks. It's coming. Now, I want to interrupt. Thank you, Mr. Village Idiot. Thank you, thank you. I want to hit on this, and I think it's very important. Before I forget, before it gets lost in the shuffle, one of the leaders of the Proud Boys, his name is Ethan Nordian. He did an interview with the media today. He said he had no idea at all. He had zero clue, zip, zilch, nada. He was clueless that the FBI had infiltrated numerous Proud Boys groups. You know, like they got their chapters, this city and that city and the other city, but the FBI had infiltrated it. So I would like to tell you, everyone here in the world of social media, on YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, everywhere, especially YouTube, Twitter or X, if you will, Facebook. Trust me when I tell you that the FBI are here also on social media, and they continuously call for violence. They continuously support and glamorize violence. They call for action. You guys need to do something. Someone needs to get their guns and go take someone out. That's what they keep trying to do. Do not fall for their tricks. Don't let their antics rile you up. Use your intelligence to understand who is who, what is what, and what is going on. Now, if I really felt that telling people to get their guns and run downtown was going to do something, I would do that, but I don't think so. I do not allow myself to get drawn into these calls for violence because I guarantee it behind that persona, it is an FBI agent trying to lure us into acts of violence so they can show up at your door and knock on it. I am not calling for violence. I'm calling for lawful behavior. The law, not statute, not rules, not ordinances, law. I call for lawful behavior. And understand your rights under the law. First Amendment, Second Amendment, etc., etc. Don't fall for their tricks, folks. Those that scream for violence the most and they're not being arrested, why not? Kind of like Ray Epps out of Arizona. He shows up and calls for violence on January 5th. Tries riling people up. We need to get violent. We need to do some stuff. We need to get rid of this problem with this guy, blah, blah, blah. And then on January 6th, he assaults police. Does not get arrested. Everyone knows who he is. They don't arrest him. They don't even question him. They don't even pull him in for questioning. Then the media and everyone says, leave Ray Epps alone. Why? Out of all the people who should be arrested, shouldn't he be one of them? No. You need to go after all those grandmothers who were invited in by the police. You betcha. You betcha. All right, Mr. Ooman, where are we going next? He says, hey, this is Mikey G, by the way. Don't the powers that be understand that when there's no justice, there's no peace? Courthouses and personnel will become targets, maybe? My understanding is yes. But when you say you don't understand, when there's no justice, there's no peace, what we need to ask ourselves is, are they intentionally violating our rights? Or is this an accident? Did they all of a sudden forget their history? Their law cases, precedent? Did the courts forget the First and Second Amendment? Did they forget the Fourth and Fifth? Did they forget the Seventh and Eighth? Right? Cruel and unusual punishment. Due process of law. Protection of your privacy and your property and your rights against self-incrimination. The government seems to just forget about all that stuff. So let me ask you this. Through all of these legal policies and decisions over the years and decades, as things have gotten shittier and shittier and shittier, who is it that stands to face violence, to become targets, as you suggest? The people that we see on the street, the police. the courts, the government that is right in front of us, they are the ones who are risking getting shot, getting arrested by the people and held for trial as traitors. I'm not suggesting that that's what needs to be done, but if things got bad, that could happen. And I think that's what Mikey G is kind of alluding to. Courthouses and their personnel would become targets. Yes. So the powers that be, people who are in charge of Biden and Hillary and Obama, their masters, don't they know that there's not going to be peace if justice is destroyed? You bet they know that. They do understand that. That's what they want. They want violence, unbridled, set loose, turn loose. They loved 2020. They loved the summer of love and mostly peaceful protesting with, mass burnings, mass murder, mass arson, mass lawlessness. They loved that as they watched it from their ivory towers. You bet your ass they loved it. They knew exactly what they're doing, and they still know to this day exactly what they're doing. It is the idiots at the street level. Now, hold on to that thought, Michael. It is the idiots at the street level. The judges, the district attorneys, the cops, the sheriffs, the state troopers. They're the ones that the people interact with. And they're the ones who will be the first ones caught by their toes and drug off to their trials. Is it happening tomorrow? No. Next week? I doubt it. In a month? Chances are slim. Sometime in the next 10 years? Now you're talking about real probabilities. So Michael Brown chimes in. How you doing there, brother? He says, John, is it true that judges grant arrest power and authority? The same judges that the powers that be kill on occasion. The answer is, yeah, of course judges grant arrest power and authority. I want to make sure I understand the question correctly, or the insinuation, or the concept. The police go to a judge and they say, we have evidence of a crime. We want an arrest warrant. Right? If they can catch a criminal in the act, well, now they have what? Probable cause, right? Catching them in the act of committing a crime, the level of reasonable suspicion is met. But for someone that they can't catch them in the act of the crime, but they have evidence of it, then they can go to a judge and get an arrest warrant. So judges grant that, yes. So it is a kind of a two-tier justice system. The police and sheriffs, or law enforcement in general, work with the courts in a checks and balances scenario. The idea is that, well, if the police are abusing their power, if the police are producing false evidence, then the judges should not grant, but rather stay any enforcement. The deal is, though, that the judge sits up there and they rubber stamp everything the police bring them, because they believe that the police are doing, well, the government's work, the Lord's work. That's what they think. Why would the police lie to me? I'm a judge. Well, what are we seeing? What are we hearing? That police are allowed to lie, that they're not held to any standard of truth. So why would we expect them to not lie to a judge? Why would we expect a judge not to grant them arresting powers at any moment? Well, they can. They truly can. And yeah, folks, judges do get killed. Lawyers get killed. Police get killed quite frequently. Right? There's a system for keeping the players in line. There's a system for keeping the players in line. And it's interesting to me that a judge or a police officer would exchange their safety for a paycheck, that they would violate others' lives and their rules and their rights. They would violate everything in front of them for a paycheck. But once again, every policeman, every sheriff's deputy, every highway patrol that I've ever spoken with, who knows me well enough just to have an honest conversation, and I've respected their names and and kept them anonymous. They know that when shit gets nasty, they're going to run for it. They're going to grab themselves and probably their family and hightail it out and bug out because they know their targets. They know that they've pissed off a lot of people. They know that they violate rights. And I'll remind you of the story. Back when I was in my early 20s, done with the Marine Corps, I ran into a high school friend of mine, and he was very excited because he was going to be a California highway patrolman. He had finally accomplished that, passed everything, took all the courses he needed, applied to the academy, and was admitted. And before he graduated, folks, he quit. This is in the early 90s. We're talking 30 years ago. And I asked him why. I said, dude, why? Thank you very much, Mr. Uman. I asked him why. He said, because in the academy down in Sacramento, they were told flat out, point blank, to their faces, to ignore the Constitution and just violate people's rights. And my friend had enough integrity to say, I'm not going to participate in that. He didn't want to spend his life, his career working, screwing people over. Now, another guy I went to high school with, let's call him Steve. He became a city policeman. It was either Modesto, I think it was Modesto, California. Got in a discussion with him and he said, hey, we don't care about your rights. And I said, well, okay, so which is it? And he says, it's admiralty law. It's not constitutional law. It's the law of the sea on land. Right? It is admiralty law. The fringed flag. We don't give a shit about your rights. Any thought or belief that that is what they actually think and care about is merely there to keep us, you and I, the people, from rebelling, from removing them from office, arresting them, and jailing them. So the oath they take, in my opinion, is completely false. They lie when they take their oath that they're going to uphold and defend the Constitution, because that's not what they're doing. They're engaged in government-sanctioned theft. It's exactly what they're engaged in. So, is that the case? Truly, is that the case? Did I hear it wrong from people who were on the inside? I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of times I've spoken with police. And to be frank, I still meet them and I still talk to them. Because I'll do anything I need to, right, so that they understand who I am, right? They recognize me and they leave me alone. Right? There's no reason for me to be rude to police and go out there and flip them off and go, fuck the police. Right? There's no reason for that. Why would I want undue negative attention? But I just understand the perspective from which they operate. Now, I'm sure there are good state troopers out there who, like my friend, ended up going through their state's academy and still maintained, even though they were told, screw people's rights, violate them all you want, that they do maintain their respect for the Constitution, and they believe their oath matters, and so they live under their oath and uphold it. I'm sure there's plenty of them. Whether they're sheriff's deputies, they tend to have more of that attitude. City police tend to have less of that attitude. But there's still good guys out there. But it's not the good guys I worry about. It's the bad guys. I walk amongst folks, hundreds and thousands of good guys every day. There's bad guys in those crowds. I know it. And if they could, at any one point, if they could take advantage and screw someone over, they will. And that's what happens with these bad eggs, is they're out there and they fuck things up. Now, anyways, I don't know if I answered your question or not, Mr. Michael Brown, but here we are. Here we are. Yeah, judges grant all kinds of power. They've been invested with power, and they are part of the checks and balances system, and they just got a rubber stamp. Boink, boink, boink. You want a search warrant? You want an arrest warrant? There you go. No worries. You want a wiretap? Bam, no problem. You want to get into the bank account? Bam, bam, no problem. All right. Thank you. Mr. Uman, where are we going next? I got less than 10 minutes. I know we got more questions. It's Charles Gentry. And he says, not everyone excels at hunting predators. Fewer still excel at hunting the predator hunters. My strength is my weakness because I have and am still here. I see the weaknesses others don't. What others call strategy, I call excuse. Strategy is for battle. The big picture is blood, period. Yours, theirs, your family's. When it pops, nothing else is going to matter but the next heartbeat. The thing you are unwilling to do is what limits you. Dying is easy. Living is hard. Ask yourself this question. The one person you care about more than anyone else is being held at gunpoint, and you can save them. But if you surrender, everyone with you is done. What is your call? Well, let me read that question again then, please. The next one, if you will. This one doesn't have the question in it. When it pops, nothing else is going to matter but the next heartbeat. Next one, please. The one person you care about more than anyone else is being held at gunpoint. Okay, someone I love has a gun to their head. Next, let me finish the question then. And you can save them, but if you surrender, everyone with you is done. What is your call? I do not surrender. I take action. I think that's very simple. Right now, the ones I love, not just one, but all of them, none of them have a gun to their head. Now, I understand that we're being surrounded by predators. They're out there, but they are not shooting. They're not aiming guns at me. Well, there's lots of threats of it. But I'll tell you what, Charles, no one is threatening me directly, nor are they threatening directly anyone else. The reason they don't is because they understand the moment they do that, we're going to have a lot of big problems. And very quickly, the hunter will become the hunted. And so they play their games. They try and find examples. Someone, for example, who is shooting his mouth off on the internet, and he's threatening government officials. He's threatening people, not just something nebulous like judges, but rather names a judge or names a politician. Now the police can zone in on that, or the FBI, if you will, and say, now we have a direct threat from one of these internet loudmouths. And they can go after and arrest that person. Maybe even kill them if they want. But then they can justify their actions by saying, this guy was threatening people. But I stand for liberty. I do. I'm not a man of inaction. I'm a man of action. There is no one putting a gun to my head or anyone else's right now. Or I would, without a doubt, take action. I'm sure you would too. I'm sure many of us would. But we're not at the point now where people that we love are having guns pointed at them, being held at gunpoint. And even for people who I don't love, who I don't even know, perfect strangers, if they had a gun at their head and I was aware of it, I would be given the opportunity to liberate that person to protect them. And I just might take that. We're seeing a lot of that these days with people who have concealed weapons, and they're using them to protect others. I don't see any problem with the way the American people are behaving. They're waking up. Right? When you wake up in the morning, you get up, you go get a cup of coffee, you sit down, at least I do, and think about things and wake up slow. Right? America is waking up from its drowsy sleep. We're finding out that there's a lot of disease, there's a lot of cancer in this country. What do you do about it? There's no leader out there in a position of authority that can do anything about it. It's going to happen, Charles. It's going to happen. Don't wish for it. It's going to happen all by itself. You don't have to antagonize. We don't have to antagonize others. All we have to do is continue to wake them up, to provide them examples of tyranny, to remind them of our history. Just because I'm awake and others aren't doesn't, I don't feel that that makes me superior to them and I need to call them names and idiots. Now, I do make fun of sheep because they are willfully obeying people who don't have their best interests at heart, and they have no desire to learn anything. They don't have any desire to protect themselves. So I'll make fun of them as sheep, right? But perhaps maybe some timid animals do wake up, and they can become very vicious and protective. And I've seen that. I think I gave the rabbit as an example the other day. I've seen rabbits attack snakes. I've seen some crazy shit out there. So I keep doing my job, which is to sound the call and try and make it a clarion, very clear, that is, call, that people need to wake up and take action. The very first thing you do is you prep. You make sure you can feed your own, protect your own, and then you help others the same way. That's what I do. That's my job here. My job is not to promote violence or tell people there's a gun to your head, right? I'm not Chicken Little shouting that way. I'm not saying that you're saying I am, Charles. What I'm saying is that is not my job. I don't need to be Alex Jones and scream every 5 minutes that the sky is falling. And if I saw a cardboard box, that it's a coffin. And if I see a tank on the train tracks, that is going to be directed against American people. I understand the evil that's in this country. I understand the evil groups, Bohemian Grove, right? The Council on Foreign Relations. I understand the international banking cartel and the international corporate cartels, the World Economic Forum. I know who the evil people are. I don't know where they live, and I'm not going to go find their homes, and I'm not going to threaten them. I don't think anyone should. But there's going to come a day. It's called the Day of Reckoning. You could call it a day of judgment. Obviously, in my opinion, that'll be a day when shit has really hit the fan. And these people, from big to small, powerful to, well, just a little powerful, like judges, their assholes are going to tighten up because they know they're going to find out that there is a price to pay. I think we're all going to find out that there's a price to pay. I pay it every day. We all pay a little bit every day. It's going to be interesting. Anyways, I think you heard my call. If someone needs help, I'm going to help them, especially if I love them. Thank you very much, though. Interesting topic. I appreciate that. Orlando has a statement. He says, my stepdaughter just sent me a memo sent by the Board of Education. They are restarting cerveza bug guidelines for prevention. This shit is starting over again. We have a new superintendent for our district who's from Texas. Maybe I can appeal to her Texas pride and code of honor. I would recommend that right off the bat, Orlando. I would take a page out of Chin Music's playbook and address her directly. Once again, in local politics, anything where you can get yourself in front of the person who's in a position of power or authority, the decision maker, like a judge, or in this case, superintendent or school board, that's where we can make a difference. I can't go up and bang on Congress's door and demand they let me speak on the floor of the House. But I can go to a school board. I can go to a building department. I can go right to the courthouse. I can go to those places and appeal, right, to their better nature. I recommend doing that, Orlando. Find out if she is a liberal or someone who likes freedom. You'll find out right away if there's a code of honor or a code of hatred for America. And as far as this masking bullshit, I thought about it today again because I saw an idiot wearing a mask. No, I take it back. I saw two idiots wearing a mask. And one of them addressed me because they were an employee. And I thought, if they tell me, right, that I'm going to need to wear a mask, what do I tell them? I tell them, well, if one mask is good and we each need to wear one, that means two masks. How about if you just wear mine for me and protect yourself from me and everyone else? If I start seeing people wearing masks, should I or should I not look at them and say, hey, I remember you people. if there's no mask mandate. I can say to anyone wearing masks, I remember you people used to tell me that I couldn't come in a store. You used to tell me to get the hell out of the stores, leave the post office, get away from the gas station. I remember that you people with the mask, you used to call the police. You used to call county health, city health department. You used to stand outside of schools on street corners and scream and yell at people for not wearing masks. You used to assault, attack, violate people's rights. You know, if you're 70 years old plus and stand outside an abortion clinic, you can go to jail for 11 years for that. But if you want to stand inside a grocery store and deny someone's ability to go into that business, because folks, abortion clinics are a business. Abortion clinics are a business, and people have a right to go there, and people have a right to walk into a public store. Yet people with masks felt they had the right or the authority to stop people, harass them, throw them around, kick them out, assault them, and then have the police come and get them. Maybe I can appeal to people's intelligence and remind them of who they are and what they've done in the past and give them hell for it. I like the idea of addressing people at our own level. Thank you, Orlando. And get ready for conflict. If you can't deal with a verbal discussion, an altercation, an argument, how are you going to be able to deal with the violence that comes as a consequence of SHTF getting out of hand? And I can't believe this. The hour is up, and I have some really interesting things to go over with you guys. Well, I guess there's always tomorrow. There's more SHTF. Now, if this was Sunday Night Live with all these topics and you guys were throwing around super chats, I'd be like, let's keep going. Get me a scotch. We're on it. As it is right now, I'm done. I need some dinner. I need a nice cool drink. I need some rest because tomorrow is going to be one hell of a day. Chance favors the prepared mind is yours. God bless America. Semper Fi. Get ready, folks. It's coming.